The UN summit is a way to mark this 25-year milestone of the landmark Beijing conference in 1995, but also an opportunity to take stock of the progress and strides that have been made, as well as the glaring gaps that remain. Now, to start with the good news, the Secretary General laid out some of the advances made to protect women and advance their opportunities, including a reduction over 25 years in the number of pregnancy-related deaths, maternal mortality, that has gone down by 40% since 1995. We have more girls attending schools now than ever in the history of the world, and more women in government leadership roles as prime ministers and presidents today than back in 1995. However, there are some glaring gaps, and among them we're seeing high rates of violence against women continuing, femicide, the killing of women by their own family members, abuse. We're seeing attacks on women still rampant, as we saw in headlines coming out of India that have sparked protests and outrage. Now, we're also seeing cases of child marriages, girls younger than 18 years old, still some as young as 7 or 8 years old. So there is a lot more that needs to be done for the world to get where it needs to be in terms of gender equality and the protection of women's rights. And that's the rallying call we heard from the UN leadership, as well as from world leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping.
There is still a long way to go and greater effort needed to build a world without discrimination against women and in creating a society with more inclusive development. Let us join hands and continue our efforts to speed up the realization of gender equality and promote development of the global cause on women.
Taking it a step further, China is also pledging another $10 million to the UN agency for women called UN Women in order to help them advance their work towards protecting women's rights and achieving gender equality. And one of the other issues that has been dominating discussions at the summit has been the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on women. It's resulted in a spike, for example, in domestic abuse around the world, from developing to developed nations, where women victims of domestic abuse have had to stay home with their abusers. We're seeing the impact on jobs, where women account for much of the work in sectors that were hit the hardest and hit the earliest, from tourism to food and beverage, as well as jobs where remote working or telecommuting was out of the question. And also, women have had to opt out from work, from the labor force, in order to take care of children and elderly relatives in the time of the pandemic. A lot of the setbacks have prompted growing concern among leadership here at the UN and diplomats about the risk of unraveling strides that have been made in the past 25 years, which is why there has been a lot of pressure out of the summit for concrete action plans in order to advance gender equality in this lifetime. Li Lingtan, CGTN, New York.